Okay, so is everyone comfortable? Yes? No? Yes. Okay. Just let me know throughout if it gets too cold or if you need more props. You could use any props, right? The balls, more mats, whatever, since we'll be sitting for a while. Okay, so I do have an outline, okay? But what I've learned always when dealing with feminine energy is that it's not up to me or any of us, right? Like, we don't get to control the conversations or the topics. So I have an outline that I'll start with, but most importantly, I want to like really tune into this group, everyone here, and see where we are with the conversation, right? Because when we talk about the womb space, it can go in all directions and we can just sort of take the highway and go really far. So my sort of intention behind this workshop is to get us all familiar with our womb and the meaning of the womb within our bodies and within our lives. And that again could mean a million things for a million different people, but sort of at least starting that conversation and allowing us to get more intimate with this part of the body, which is not a conversation nor a cultural norm, right, for the most of us. So yeah, let's just start. You're gonna take a seated position if you're not there, just nice and comfortable. Kind of move your muscles away from your thigh bones, okay? And so the reason I want you to do that is so that your tailbone, our tailbone has two little bony parts. Our tailbone most of the time in our world sort of sits like this and it sort of clenches because we're so, like, we're just adrenalized and we're just overstimulated. And so the first thing that the feminine asks us to do is to soften sacral and root chakra. And if you actually do that, like I can feel it in my body, my whole root chakra just opens up like a flower. And so that actually allows the two tiny little tailbones to sort of open a little bit and kind of become a passage for energy. So if you can feel that, and you might even feel a little tilt of the tailbone, I want you to just feel that sort of anchoring, and then close your eyes. So you're rooted through your hips and the tailbone. Oh, hi. Of course, please. Jaybird, thank you. You can totally grab a mat. We literally just started. So I was just getting them in a comfortable position where our hips are stacked and the tailbone is sort of open and relaxed. And so once you're there, you can close your eyes. And go ahead and take one hand on your womb and one hand on your heart. Now, energetically, our heart and womb are connected. It's how we're born. We're born with a heart that's connected to our womb, no matter what gender we are. And so oftentimes this connection gets cut off through life experiences, through trauma, just because we're humans. So what I want you to do right now is start to breathe into the hand on your womb space. So allow that hand to flourish, like really expand, inhale. And then as you exhale, imagine you can breathe it up towards your heart space. Just take a few more like that. So you're dropping the inhale down into the womb, down into those tailbones that we just opened up. And then exhale, allow that energy to rise up to the heart. And all I want you to do for a few breaths is just to feel this energetic exchange between the heart and the womb, which is so often compromised. And so as you breathe into these two spaces, I want you to focus first on the heart space, which is often, as a society, a little bit easier to do. So as you breathe into the heart, notice if there's anything that your heart wants to bring to the surface, maybe for this session, for this conversation, maybe just for you to receive. Anything on your heart. And then once you feel good with that, maybe you don't receive anything, and that's fine too. Drop your breath down into the womb space. Allow her to continue blossoming and taking up more space. And then ask your womb, the house of our inner feminine, our deep, deep feminine. Ask her if there's anything that she would like to bring into this conversation. And there's no right or wrong answer. And then once you have that, just go ahead and take your palms together and start to rub them. Just create some heat. And then just keep rubbing them together. You're going to feel more heat and more heat and more heat. And then stop. Just feel the vibrations of the palms. And then take that vibration and heat back to your heart and womb. Just kind of bringing that heat towards your body. Soothing that space that holds so much wisdom. And then when you're ready, you're just going to release your palms and open your eyes. Kelsey, see if you can come in so you can sit in the circle. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so did anybody have anything that they maybe want to share or they want to bring in? Just blurt it out. Just speak up.
You're taking space up?
You're taking space up?
Yeah, when you go into your taking of space.
Yeah.
And allowing to kind of be its loud self and its strong.
Yes, girl. Yes. And that's so great because when I tuned into my heart, the first thing that the word that came up was liberation. It was like liberation, like let's start the conversation and let's do this thing, because this is a conversation that really liberates us from anything that we don't even realize. And I've never come from a background of like liberation, like that's not me. But the more that I go into this work, the more I realize, oh, that's because we're just so subconsciously held back and not taking up space, right? So like liberation can just mean you're standing in your power and you're just able to speak your truth at any given moment. And that can mean stop, you've gone too far. Or no, I'm not going to do that. Or yes, you feel good for me, right? That's liberation, right? So yeah, taking up space, that's huge. Yeah. A lot of times, and this conversation is going to go in different ways. I work with the womb a lot in an energetic sense. So sometimes the references that I get is just from the energy healing work that I do, but I have my sister who is a mental health therapist and specializes in trauma work and deep shadow work. And so her work kind of complements it. And we're going to talk a little bit about maybe the way that we see it differently, but ultimately we're doing the same kind of work in different ways. But taking up space is the way that I see in energy healings a lot of times is the womb is completely collapsed. It's supposed to be this beautiful, vibrant energy center that actually, it's the meeting point between the physical and the spiritual. Right? It's actually where we birth, right? It's a space where if we wanted to birth a human, they would start here. It's the only space in the entire earth that you can have spiritual and earthly in one place, right? And so we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, right? Even if you're not birthing a child, but when I see it in an energy healing that the womb is completely collapsed, for a woman, that means that our ability to bring in the energy into our lives and manifest something and create it, whether it's a project or it's our desires, or maybe it's just living a pleasurable life, or maybe it's just taking up space, that ability all of a sudden is like, shut down, right? Because our connection that is supposed to bring from up here down into the earth is like, it's collapsed, right? So I'm just gonna sort of throw out these things, and you ladies get to like ask questions or sit with it, or, you know, make it as you wish. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to share anything that came up?
For me, it was expression. So ability and inability to express.
Yeah. And that's a big one for women, right? Because between the heart and the womb, the actual connection is the womb and the throat, right? So that's a big one. As soon as our throat shuts down, or as soon as the womb shuts down, they work hand in hand. It just goes, right? And so, yeah, ability to express. Anyone else?
Like when I placed my hand on my heart, I was feeling like really like softening and being held by the woman, because I feel we all have that motherly, nurturing like energy within us, and you can embody that for yourself, but to like just be a woman and to be held in the space of woman is so tender and gentle, and I feel like we sisters have been separated from that, or thinking that's taboo or weird, to just be completely surrendered and held. And so I was feeling that a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing to be held.
Yeah,
right?
so good.
Yeah, which is another thing that we're so caught up in, that masculine approach of, and I'm all about balancing masculine and feminine, right? But like, just that approach of like constantly go, 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 and stand up and be a strong woman, and what happened to the woman that's just soft and can surrender and be held by another sister or a partner or whatever, right? Like, that's really needed, and that takes oftentimes a lot more courage and strength than actually being that masculine force, right? Okay, so let's just sort of start the conversation of the role of the womb on all emotional, physical, and spiritual levels, right? So, like I had mentioned before, the womb is this space that is the meeting point, to me, between dimensions, but to most people, it's just that place where something of the unknown can come in and be birthed, and we're talking about a human child, and then be given out into the world, right? So only in that container of the placenta can a being experience so deeply both realms, right? And so then for some reason, it's like in our culture, like unless you're pregnant, you don't really connect to your womb, right? I want to see just a show of hands, and then there's no right or wrong, but like, anybody have a role for their womb right now in their life? Like, does your womb have a role in your life? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's very typical, right? It's very typical to not have a role for your womb, because that's not what we're taught. It's like, good, you're pregnant, use your womb, then you can actually just get surgically remove it, because you really don't need it anymore, and then you're just kind of done with the womb space, right? It's like, what? That's barbarian, literally barbarian. So just like it's like a place of birthing, it's also a place for a woman to be in her power and birth what she wants to birth out into the world. And so that can mean a lot of things, But really, when we lose connection to our womb, we're losing connection to our bodies, right? And so a big thing is we've become very desensitized as a culture. It's like we're just really strong, we can take it all in, we're gonna shut down the womb, and we're gonna live. If we're lucky enough, we live from the heart up. If not, we just live from the jaw up, right? It's like, and that's what has happened. And so for me, when we talk about coming back into the womb space, it's not just about, it's not a manifesting thing. It's actually, let's come down to the wisdom of our bodies and get familiar with like what is going on in my body? That's how I see it. It's like the womb is like our center that tells us what you want. Your ego doesn't tell you. The advertisement, the TV, the radio, your friend, they don't tell you what you desire in life, but that's the life we live in. Oh, you have that person, I want it too. Oh, you have that life, I want it too. Did you ever check in with your body? And that's what I'm finding, that the more you anchor into your womb, we are all so uniquely different. Like the things that we want, what feels valuable for us, the things that we desire, how we want to manifest, express, and create in the world, there's a bazillion ways of doing that for every woman on this planet. And so the more we come back into the womb space and open up this sort of like Pandora box of information that's inside our bodies, the more we can desensitize. And when we desensitize, sometimes it's often seen as maybe like weak, because you literally soften. It requires you to soften. But it takes a tremendous amount of strength to soften. So as we open up the Pandora box that is our womb, we get to find out, it's really coming back into our deep, deep intuition. And it's only through deep, deep intuition that we can find out our truth. And there's two types of truth. There's a universal truth, right, which we talk about like in universal terms, quantum physics, laws of nature. And then we have truth with a capital T, which is my truth, not your truth, right? This is why people go to war, because we don't have the same truth, so you're my enemy. But the feminine knows that my truth is supposed to be different than yours. And our truths teach us the beauty of that difference and that contrast. And as I anchor into my truth and you anchor into your truth, we both grow, right? That's the wisdom of the feminine. But how do we tap into that without me being derailed? Oh my God, that's your truth. Then maybe that's my truth too. Oh my God, maybe I should be scared because I don't know. Oh my God, immune system shut down. Boom, right? Like that's kind of like the world that we live in. And so I think that that's really the conversation of like, the womb is this Pandora box of wisdom and intuition that's inside of us. So the question is, how do we open it and how do we come back to it? Okay. So energetically, the way that I see it is in the womb is sort of a collapse. We're all familiar with the chakra system. So it's the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus. Energetically, that's how I see it. Like it's not just your sacral, but it's actually solar plexus. Like if you have a shut down womb space, it's going to be very hard for you to express your truth. If you have any trauma in your womb, it's going to be really hard for you to actually anchor into what we were just talking about, the truth, right? Then, of course, the sacral energy. I mean, it's your womb space, right? So obviously, it's going to be your sexual force, right? And I'm not going to talk about it too much because that's a whole nother conversation, but really, I feel like it's really the feminine's job at this time to come back to their body's wisdom, right? Exactly what we're talking about. Like, let me stand in my truth with my capital T. Let me put my hands on my body and let me ask myself, what does sexual energy mean to me? That's huge. That is beyond huge. In a world that sexual energy is the exchange currency, it's crazy, right? And the more we tap into that, the more we realize that's true power. Understanding your sexual force and honing into it and really using it for what it was meant to be used. Sexual force is creative force. Now you get to create whatever you want with that force, right? But your ability to hone into that sexual force and use it, as a creative tool, and obviously as a tool for pleasure and desires, right? But just really breaking down. You can take a seat in the circles somewhere. We'll just make space, yeah. That's a really important conversation, yeah. And oftentimes, we'll talk about trauma in a little bit, but oftentimes it's the traumatic experiences we experience, that it's not just sexual trauma, it's just emotional, physical, right? Like energetic, that is sort of stored in that womb, that rips apart our sexual force, and then we have this distortion of sexual energy in our body, and we're like, we can't get enough of sex, or we can't have any sex, or I want to, like all this extremities of the sexual energy in our life and in the earth. It's a sort of imbalance of not understanding our feminine, because the feminine is the holder of that sexual force. The feminine is what holds it, the masculine is what penetrates it, right? And then we have the root chakra, so security, like being able to feel, like you said, held. Like how often do you actually feel held in the spaces that you walk into, right? Like most of us, maybe we go to work, we don't feel held, for the most part, right? Like, do you feel held by your job? Do you feel held by the places that you show up? Maybe your own family and friends. Like, if you think about it real quick, or you ask yourself, who do I feel held by in my life? It's a really important question, right? Most importantly, like, do you feel held by yourself? That's a really powerful one. And then, like, do I feel safe and secure with my partner or with my most intimate circles, right? Do I feel financially able to stand on my own 2 feet? And finances is a big thing, right? It's a real energetic exchange, and it's something that oftentimes we don't talk about in our spiritual communities, but it's like our ability to feel nurtured and safe and be able to stand on our feet is the feminine. She is the one that provides the food. She is the one that nurtures, yeah. So that's how I see it. It's like the womb space is the 3 energy centers that are collapsed. A really good metaphor is to think about the womb or the feminine as like the soil of the earth. So if you think of the soil as like this dark place that feeds, right? Like you put a seed in the soil and it could give you food. It's the same thing. If your womb is in this sort of balanced equilibrium state, you plant an intention in your womb, and then with time that intention can grow and manifest, right? Yeah. Okay, so if you have any questions throughout, like, let me know, because I know I can sort of go out. So we talked a little bit about the energetic, the physical, right? Sexual energy. Understanding that fertility, this is a big conversation too, is where our womb holds fertility. And oftentimes, again, if you're not trying to get pregnant, who cares if you're fertile, right? And that's one of the questions I always ask, like, about yoni steaming. I'm like, are you fertile? And it's not just like, are you ovulating? It's like, are you actually healthy enough where your hormones are balanced? Because a fertile woman, it's like asking the earth, are you gonna plant an avocado tree so I could eat? Or like, I don't know if it's making sense, but like, it's not just, you're not just fertile to produce children. You're fertile to produce life, right? A flower holds a very important role in life, just like a weed, just like a fruit, just like a vegetable, and all the other things. So like, your fertility and your balanced hormonal cycle, which is the menstrual cycle, which we'll talk about, is your foundation as a woman. And there's a reason why currently right now on a global scale, there's a really like a deep movement to sort of shut down the womb, shut down the menstrual cycle, shut down the women's hormones, because if you have that natural, beautiful hormonal cycle, that is your gateway to your womb. So the first thing we want to do is, I'm going to shut down your hormone cycle, I'm going to shut down your womb, I'm going to maybe surgically remove it, and that way I could just hope that you never tap into your feminine, right? And so this conversation is about, where's my hormonal cycle? How do I feel about my fertility? Maybe I don't want to give birth, but maybe I want to plant a seed in my womb to create something. And you're not just fertile at 21 or 35. Every stage of the feminine is fertile in its own way, And that's really, really important in this conversation, to know that you're not just good to have a child. As a woman, you feel and entire lifespan. And just to be super clear, this same conversation goes for men, but they have a different role in it too, right? So none of this is meant to say like we're better or whatever. There's just energetically, there's a difference, right? If you have a physical womb, there's a reason and a significance behind it, okay? So obviously the womb space is what really dictates the hormonal cycle, right? The shifts in the hormones. Digestion, right? So if your womb space is traumatized, or if you have any issues around digestive system, oftentimes that really can be a representation of an imbalance of the womb. And that's one of the beautiful things that we're creating here is we have this abdominal massage we'll talk about with Tracy, because we have so much stagnation in our womb space. And the stagnation around, we think it's just the digestive system, the foods that we eat, and it's not. Most of it is energetic. So if you have any kind of imbalance around the womb space, the first thing you're going to notice is some kind of shift in your hormones, some kind of shift in your digestive system, some kind of shift in your sexual energy. And again, sexual energy is not just an exchange with a person. Sexual energy is your ability to connect to your body and feel really good and safe and nurtured and held and beautiful, no matter what your body looks like. That's sexual energy. Sexual energy is walking into a room grounded in your power, saying, I am everything that I am right now, and I don't need to change anything, right? And I think that that's really important for women to hear, because oftentimes it's like, no, sexual energy, well, I'm not even going to go into that conversation. It's not important, right? Okay, so we talked about fertility, digestion. Okay. Any questions up until this point? Is it landing? Is it a little crazy? Okay, good. My sister's like, just don't go woo-woo on them. I'm like, I don't know how not to. Okay. Woo-woo, okay, good. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about just some practical tools to connect with your womb space, right? So first and foremost, let me just talk a little bit about how this sort of thing just came to be, which is so cool. This is the feminine goddess for me, right? Like, she's voluptuous, she's curvaceous, she's standing in her power, and she's like, this is me, I am here. I'm taking up all the space that I want. And so she's balanced out between the dark and the light, right? You have literally an obsidian stone, which takes you, it's a stone that helps you work with the shadow, go into the depths of the depths of the depths. And you use that stone, or you use the womb, because this is all representative of the womb. The womb is like the soul of the earth. It is what keeps the darkness of the darkness of the darkness of the darkness. And again, sometimes we're scared of talking about what does that even mean? Like, I don't want to talk about the dark, I just want to be in the light. And it's like the feminine is actually anchored in the dark, right? This is why we say like cosmic space. If you've ever seen like those galaxies that are spirals, that spiral is the womb. The galaxies, that's the womb. The womb is complete darkness. Children are birthed in darkness. Birthed in darkness. Creation is birthed in darkness. So why is humanity scared of the darkness? Because that's where creation and magic and the unexplainable can happen, right? This is why witches have been burned at the stake. This is why, all of these things have been taboo, because, oh my God forbid our mind can't fathom or put the dots together. Now we can't hold it and control it and manipulate it. That's not okay, right? The feminine says, no, you will never hold me, you will never know me. She is the mystery. But we have that inside of us, which is so beautiful, right? So you have the dark stone, which is, I feel like the feminine, the deeper you work with her, the more you understand that human trauma is like, it's important. It's important to get very familiar with where you come from, what's inside you, and how are you moving with that trauma through the world, right? And maybe you don't have trauma, maybe you just have like emotional patterns or thought patterns or whatever, right? We all have our things, we're all human. The feminine comes to you, puts her hands on your shoulder and tells you, that's perfect. You're supposed to have that. I created you that way. So you can move through that and then plant the seed in the soil of the womb and bring that medicine to your community. It's more of the masculine approach to be like, no, let's grab that thing that's traumatizing you, let's break it down, let's dissect it, and let's remove it, right? It's like, you don't remove anything of the feminine. You just sit in her and you allow yourself to bathe in that trauma, bathe in those emotional experiences to the point where you become them, and then you just decide, I am made from those experiences. Is this making sense? So I'm only sort of tapping into that conversation so we get ready more into the trauma work. But so this is the stone of the darkness, but she also then holds the seed of light, right? So when that seed finally pops up out of the soil, or when your manifestation finally gives light into the world, right? Or when that child finally takes its head out into the world, that's the light that only came from sitting in the darkness from 9 months, right? So she is the carrier of both. And I just think that's really important to understand, because when we tap into the feminine, it's like we kind of want to only reach for like certain archetypes, right? And we don't know, like me, when I started the work of the feminine, like I just wanted to reach for the light side without knowing it. It's like, well, this feels nice and comfortable, I like that. But naturally she started to take me down into the darker realms. And I was like, oh, I'm only allowed to be in the light if I actually can move through the dark, right? And so I think that's really important if we start talking about, for example, the menstrual cycle. For those of us that do have a menstrual cycle, talking about the blood of our cycle. Like, how many of us actually know the consistency of our blood, the color of our blood? In Chinese medicine, these are ancient practices. Woman is, what's the color of your blood? And what does it look like? What's the texture? That's like normal conversation. Why is that not normal conversation? Why are we so disgusted by blood? It's bizarre. If you didn't have blood, you'd die right now. You'd collapse, right? And so just, I'm not going to break down the menstrual cycle because it just takes a while. But if you have a menstrual cycle, like, start tapping into it. Learn your cycle. And your cycle is not, I bleed for 4 days and then I'm done. You live in a menstrual cycle every single day of your life, whether you bleed every 28 days, every 65 days, if you don't bleed, maybe you're following the moon cycle, but you live in a cycle. You're a cyclical being as a feminine force. So, and one thing I do want to mention, if you are on birth control and your hormones are not doing that sort of circular thing, and there's sort of birth control, what it does, it just sort of collapses that chart, and every day you go up and down, up and down, up and down, as opposed to having this sort of valley-like roll of hormones. In that case, start tapping into your body and saying, how do I feel today? How do I feel today? How do I feel today? Because we don't even ask that to ourselves, right? So just getting familiar with the 4 seasons of your menstrual cycle. There's charts all over the studio of like breaking it down. What are the 4 seasons? What do I feel in these 4 seasons? How do I feel throughout the moon cycle? And get it curious, because your body changes every week, especially if you're still bleeding. And those changes are so important for your emotional well-being, for your physical well-being, for your spiritual well-being. And if you deny that, or you try to look the other way, at some point it's going to come back, right? That means if we collapse our menstrual cycle and we don't pay attention to it, when it's time to go into menopause, or when it's time to go into our deeper years, we're going to have a very difficult transition. Because the divine feminine, the one thing that she does is that she speaks up. She does not leave. She doesn't leave the room without making a show, right? So maybe she might make the show when you're 80, maybe she might make it when you're 20, but she's going to make it, and you're going to know it. Yeah. So getting familiar with your menstrual cycle. I've created this planner, and I've just brought out tools just for you to like start to have practical ways of just knowing, because nobody told me this stuff. Like, I had to figure all this stuff out, and it was really annoying, you know? And when I would have mentors and stuff, we would talk about divine feminine energy all day, like all the esoteric stuff, all the astrology and archetype and all these things that nobody told me. Put your hands on your womb, understand your cycle, and write shit down. Nobody told me that. It was always like out there, and that's beautiful. But at some point you have to come back into the body and figure out, is my womb healthy? Are my hormones healthy? Am I a fertile being, right? So I have a cyclical living planner that I've created that comes with a whole online course that tells you, like, breaks down basically your menstrual cycle and how to connect with that. I do want to say, we have Queen's Anne's lace here in the studio, and this is made by one of the herbalists that's going to be here tomorrow. Natural birth control is a life-changing, empowering tool that you can have as a woman. It changed my life forever. And again, I say that because Queen's Anne's lace is a natural form of birth control. Nobody told me that was a thing. It was like, you either have pharmaceutical birth control or you're fucked, right? Like, there's no middle way. Nobody told me, if you actually understand your body, and it's not just about ovulation, but if you actually know how fertile you are every day, you don't have to have fear when it comes to being in partnership. And that fear is a huge wall for young women that are still cycling, because again, your sexual energy is so powerful, and your womb space, God, I want to like talk about a million things at once, but your womb space is like, it's your womb space, no matter what age you are, is a representation of how deeply intimate can you be with another being, right? So just thinking about the different relationships in your life, right? Chances are you have, if you're in a sacred relationship, you're going to be with one person, right? Unless you're more than one person, right? That's fine. But I'm going to talk about from my experience, and I'm not going to say that that's better or worse. It's just I like to talk about the things I've experienced, and I'm not going to talk about metaphorically because I don't have that experience. So in my experience, being in sacred union, your ability to be intimate with somebody is very different. Like the way that I know you, my sister, she's my blood sister, I'm intimate with her, right? Because she knows pretty much everything about me. But I'm different intimate with her than I am with my husband, right? Energetically, my womb space is a reflection of that. So how deeply I can go into sacred union with another being, no matter where they are, like as a person, my womb will tell me how deeply I can go. And that energetic component is one of those mysteries that we talk about in all of the ancient scriptures. I don't care what religion or philosophy or mystery school you're a part of. Jesus and Magdalene, Osiris and Isis. I mean, you name it. They all have a masculine and feminine archetype that came in union for some bigger thing, right? And this is what I'm talking about. Like, our ability to hone into the power of our womb is also going to directly affect our most deepest and intimate relationships. Is this stuff landing? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is really important because it's good to have a lot of like strong community, but when it comes down to like the people or the person that I want to be most intimate in life and my deepest partner that will show me all of my shadows and I will do all of my deepest work with, your womb will dictate how far you will go with that. Let me give you a really practical example. I did an energy healing recently, and a lot of times, again, my main work is the womb. So oftentimes the womb will come up. Well, this person, the womb, I was not allowed to see the womb. It was only in the heart space. So I was like, oh shit, like here I am doubting myself, like, oh, there's something wrong, I didn't do my work, God, I feel so bad. We start the conversation. Like, what is going on? I'm not allowed to tap into your womb. She says, I've been in a relationship for 10 years and I don't feel like I love him and I can't be truthful to him. And I actually am really scared, but I really want to walk away, but I don't know how. And I'm like, do you understand that your whole heart field is completely collapsed? I had to reorganize her whole entire, our heart field, like that energetic, completely gone. It wasn't there. I had to restructure it. And there was no access to the womb. So here we are as women thinking like, oh, whatever, it's just my boyfriend. Like, he's good for now. Like, I can't be truthful with him, but whatever, he works. Or like, he's my husband, right? Like, we have all these things like, oh, this is my partner, right? And they're okay, but she's like, she's kind of, and I'm not saying it, we all have different things in life. My point is that when you lie to yourself, your womb and your heart shut down. People don't die from a heart attack because of cholesterol. They die from a heart attack because they can't stand in their heart or their womb. That's very difficult to like digest, you know? Because we don't want to believe that as culture. We want to blame it on the food that we eat, right? And yeah, the food is important. I have a holistic nutrition background. I know food is important. But food is not even close to this kind of work. You can stand in your truth and eat French fries from McDonald's. I'm telling you. Like, I am not a proponent. I don't like that stuff. But like, the energetics behind this work, I know a lot of you guys are energy healers or body workers, and like, it's real. You can't lie to yourself. So if you're completely disconnected, it's gonna show up. And I just find that sacred union is one of those. I work deeply with the feminine energy, and sacred union is a big pillar, you know, and like the ancient temples, like all of those pillars, they have meanings. They didn't just randomly build massive like every pillar has a meaning, and one of those is sacred union. First, sacred union to self. How much am I willing to be truthful to myself? And then the more truth I can be within myself, the more my partner will show up in his truth or her truth or their truth, right? Okay. I was not planning on talking about any of that, but yeah, I feel like, yeah, whatever. Okay, so practical tools, let's come back to it. So we have, that's what I was talking about, right? Practical tools. Coming back to it, birth control, right? So just knowing, like, if you are on birth control pharmaceutically, or you feel like, that was my experience. I had an abortion. My path with the feminine opened up because I had an abortion. And I was thrown into the darkness of life. Nobody told me I could have natural birth control. Nobody told me my womb was important. Nobody told me to chart my cycle. And here I was in the depths, right? So I'm giving you the tools, and then you get to resonate, right? So there's natural birth control, and that's not the only herb. There's a whole line of herbs that you can use, and we can talk about that. Menstrual cycle teas as well, just bringing awareness to your womb. Like, God, I hate my period. Okay, why do you hate it? Use teas, use herbs. The earth will give you the medicine that you need. If you have painful periods, it's because your womb is trying to tell you something. Your period is supposed to be a place of bliss, of complete sexual liberation, and complete channeling. That's supposed to be your period. That's how I was treated back in the day. When we would come together, you would use your sexual energy, not necessarily to be in partnership, but to actually create as a woman, channel things that were unheard of because you're a complete open channel to the universe, and just honor the fact that you're a cyclical being. So just bringing awareness either by teas or just different things, yeah, is really important. Okay, so another tool that I really do have to say is the yoni steaming, obviously, right? We offer it here in the studio, and it's not for my purpose, but like, you can set up yoni steaming at your house. You can do that. So I'm really not trying to sell yoni steaming, but I do want to bring it to your awareness that yoni steaming is an ancient practice that heals most of what we call like womb procedures, right? All these surgical procedures that we're seeing, most of them are very unnecessary. You can clear cysts, PCOS, like all these hormonal imbalances, postpartum depression, like all these things, right? Organ prolapse, all these things that women are experiencing. Steaming. There's clinical research being created by women, by the way, because men, unfortunately, the medical institutions won't do this. They won't fund the research. So women are doing it out of their own hands and pockets. They're doing these clinical research to prove, look, with water and herbs, you can heal so much. Mind-blowing. So if you don't know about yoni steaming, like, definitely look into it. It's a very powerful practice. And we can talk about that too with trauma, but what we're finding is that even if you don't even realize you have trauma, the women that are sitting in these yoni stool boxes, within a matter of days or weeks, are getting memories. Because, like I said earlier, your womb holds everything. It holds your mother line. It holds everything you've ever experienced. It holds 7 generations back. So all the things that our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers weren't able to speak, until we speak them or process them, we're going to keep passing it down. So these women are sitting in these yoni steams thinking it's a spa experience, and it is. It's a spa experience. But if you come into this space that I energetically imprint for clearing, it's going to be a little bit more than that, right? And if you set your intention and be like, steam, plants, teach me. Bring me the sensations and the emotions. People, they sit there and they start crying. They're like, Celeste, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm like, just cry. We'll talk later, right? Because that's what happens when you give the womb a safe space to be, and you give her the medicine that she needs, and you tell her, open up. I'm ready for you. And that takes courage. Not any woman just says like, okay, I'm ready to go into the depths of my depths, right? Like, that's difficult shit. That's hard, right? So yoni steaming is a really safe and powerful practice that you can do. Yeah. And then just questioning and this will be the last one before we go into talking a little bit more about the trauma, but like understanding your relationship, and this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about where the feminine shows up in our lives, right? So we talked about the feminine in our bodies, right? Like the womb space and what that means, but like, what are some of the feminine aspects that is part of our culture and our lifestyle? So like, first and foremost, food, right? Food is a feminine archetype. We gather around food and we receive a tremendous amount of pleasure and satisfaction from food and meals. So it's really important for women specifically. This is why women have such a distortion with food in their body, because we've been trained, shut down the womb, shut down the feminine, restrict yourself from X, Y, and Z, right? Our relationship with food immediately will tell you, how's your relationship with your feminine? I grew up in a very distorted relationship with that. I was a professional dancer. My entire life was about restriction. So when the feminine came in and forced me to not have restriction with food, I lost my shit. Like, I couldn't handle it. I was like, it was crazy. So just ask yourself, what is your relationship to food? How do you feel when you eat food, and what foods do you gravitate towards? Okay? And it's not just about, and it can actually be very distorted too, because some of the feminine stuff that's happening now is like, well, I love my body, so I'm allowed to eat everything, so I'm just gonna eat McDonald's, ice cream, French fries. Like, that's also a distortion, right? Like, yes, you're allowed to have the ice cream and the French fries and all the things, but then come back to your truth and say, do I feel good in that, right? So everything is in balance, right? And I just want to make that little clear point. Okay. We talked about our relationship to the sexual force, but like, what is your relationship to the sexual energy? How do you feel? How do you express yourself? How do you create? Are you a creative being? Are you creating the things that you want to create in your life? And again, it's not about manifesting. This is not manifestation culture. The feminine does not get a high on egotistical manifestation. Like, that's not what it is. It's like, am I living in, maybe your manifestation is, I just want to live in a safe space where I could just be happy. That's huge. How many of us walk around like that? Right? So like, are you not only connecting to your sexual energy the way that you want to, and with your partner, or without your partner, just with yourself, but then how are you using your creative force? Are you able to tap into it? Another question is movement. Movement, right? So like, yeah, that's my fascination. That's why this is a movement studio. Like, bar to me is my thing as I grew up as a dancer. But like, our ability to move our bodies and like liberate ourselves, and this is why like I find bar to be beautiful, because it's very like feminine, but it's also very challenging, right? So it's like, You're strengthening, but you're also moving in a very feminine way. But like, do you dance? Do you move? Like, how do you move, right? And again, it's never, my intention is never to like put a pedestal on things, but like the whole phenomenon with yoga becoming this huge thing. I think yoga is amazing, but we have to look at the background of yoga and understand that it was created for masculine, for masculine boys between the ages of 10 and 15 when their sexual energy was rising and they had to shut it down to keep their connection to the cosmos. That was why yoga was created, to shift the energy of a body, of a human body that naturally is rooted into the earth and is part of pleasure and texture and all of these forces, and say, no, stay in your mind, you are not of that nature, breathe, square, 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 right? And I say that because I've also involved myself deeply into the yoga community and did all the teacher trainings, and what I felt energetically is it felt like I was putting myself in a square box, and I actually became, I tend to be very body. So what I need most is the medicine of the feminine, which is grounding. I need to be in this earth because it's very easy for me to leave. And as soon as I started yoga teacher training, I was out. Like I was out of my body. It was hard for me to stay physical. Like I wasn't eating. I wasn't like happy with my life. I was like, well, I don't even need to be on this earth because I'm an energetic body anyway, right? So it's like, again, this is not, I think, yeah, no. And so a lot of times spiritual teachers would be like, great, you're doing it. That's great. And it's like, am I? Is that the world that we're going into? Because the womb teaches me that I'm merging the two. I am merging. I am the spiritual essence in my human form. And if I can't keep my feet on the ground and speak to you right now and eat the foods and do the things and have the sexual force, I'm completely letting go of my physical existence and my human body. And so, and actually after completing the yoga teacher training is when I had my abortion. It was like I went so deep into the masculine traditions of getting out of body that the feminine was like, I'm not letting you go there, bam. She literally like killed my entire life. And again, this is not a pedestal. Some of us need yoga because we need that, right? Yoga is a very powerful tool. I want to be really clear, this is not about what is better and what is worse. I'm just bringing light to some of the conversations that we don't often have. So maybe yoga is your movement practice to connect to your feminine. But then I'm just going to challenge you and say, when you're in yoga, do you feel like being a little bit more fluid? There's a lot of women now that are taking the yoga practice and they're making it more fluid. They're like going to Warrior One, but go into it in more of a flowing state and find out what you actually want to move. And do you want to find some spinal, articulation in that movement, right? And do you want to use chair as a way to like, there's just different ways that the feminine moves. Right? So I feel actually that yoga is getting a little bit of a transformation, getting that feminine edge. But the ultimate question is, do you move and how do you feel about your movement practice? That's the ultimate question. And you're just getting curious about that. Because it's movement that brings us into our bodies, grounds us, makes us feel human and physical. Okay? Okay. All right, and then your ability to self-care. And this is not ability to go to the spa or do your nails. This is your ability to create boundaries, to say, no, I don't have time for that conversation or that meeting right now. To realize like, you know what, I'm tired, I'm stressed or whatever. I need my own time. Like, do you have the ability do you have the wherewithal to say, I need some self-care right now? Because a lot of us are in that masculine approach of, that's just like a luxurious thing. And it's like, no, if you're not filling your own cup, forget it, right? So just understanding that, like I'm a very like overly focused, high achiever. Like you give me something and I'm gonna take it to the end. But I had to learn the hard way because it was through burnout that I've realized, oh, it's the feminine that's calling me to take care of myself. Nobody wants to see me in a burnt out state. It's useless. I don't want to see you. What's the point, right? So do you have that ability to create those boundaries and say, oh, I need to take care of my body and my life and my relationships, right? So any questions so far? Okay, anybody want to bring in any topics before we go a little bit deeper into just, we're going to have a very surface layer conversation around trauma in the womb space. No questions? Yeah.
I guess I'll just go back to what I first felt when we were doing the meditation. It was like, especially in these settings or out in the world when we are so sensitive, it was just like the message from my heart to lift and remain up and open and weaving. So like when we're in those situations, like how that embodiment can help both yourself in that moment and the other people around you. And then the womb space was just like realigning through that heart alignment. So it was just like because you're lifting and because you're open in that state, then the womb can relax more. It was like a message of alignment.
Yeah, it's so true. And the heart is actually the door to the womb, right? So like if we can't deeply open our heart space, it's going to be really hard to access the womb. Yeah.
Especially when things are so crazy in the world right now, to like keep doing that.
Yeah,
Instead
right?
of close it, and like 'cause that big instinct, right? When those energies come in, it's to like protect.
Yeah.
Keep it open.
But you know what I've noticed too is like the more we connect to the womb space, is like the more we understand humanity, and not just humanity, because we're all humans, but like the human experience, right? So like the feminine your inner feminine, or your understanding of that deep, deep feminine in your womb space is like, I'm not a proponent of news, I don't watch the news, but there was a time in my life where I couldn't watch the news because if I watched it, I would be totally succumbed by it, and like my whole energy level would be completely on the floor. I could probably start crying within 10 seconds, right? That was because I didn't understand the feminine, and so my heart was shut down, my womb was shut down, and boom, like I literally could not see suffering. There's a space for the feminine that understands that suffering is necessary. And so just like we have pain through the birthing canal, right? Just like there are pains when we create things, right? There's a part of the feminine that understands that pain and suffering. It's just part of that darkness and that light, you know? And yeah, I don't know if that helps, but it's helped me at least go out into the world and maintain an open heart, right? Because that's like the last thing we want to do these days, right? No, oh my God, there's like a million reasons why I should never even go near you. And it's like, can I keep an open heart and like trust? That takes so much courage, right?
Something that I say when I leave my house and I go out, because I like to live and share my light and remind people of what's within. I always say like, I'm anchoring in pillars of light around me, so I'm safe to be and express, but like anything not in resonance is like not gonna be able to come into my field, but I can still just exist and I'm safe and I'm protected and I'm taken care of, and it's safe for me to be from heart center.
I like that. Any other questions or comments before we go to the last part of the conversation? Nothing? Okay. Cool. So, where to start with wound trauma? I just want to start this by saying I am not a trauma specialist. I am also learning a lot through the energy work that we're doing here in this space, and I am finding and learning that trauma can exist in a million ways. And sometimes, at least from my knowledge, I always thought it was like, oh, there's either sexual trauma or nothing. That is not the case at all, right? It's like trauma comes in a million ways. You can have trauma when you were 2 years old because you saw your parents arguing and you were like, oh my God, they're about to like, you know, emotionally bastardize each other, and boom, you shut down, right? Like that's traumatic for a 2-year-old. So trauma comes in a million ways. Obviously, as a woman with a womb, sexual trauma is way more common than what we know and sometimes what we remember. And even if we haven't experienced it, oftentimes our mother lineage or even our father lineage sometimes has experienced it. So, and not only that, just like physical, energetic abuse, right? Like just, it can come in so many different ways, okay? And Jaybird is I would say, someone who has more experience in this conversation. So I'm going to have you maybe share what you want at some point, and then now you can share too. But I'll just start with sort of my perspective, and then I'll open up that conversation. Yeah. So to me, when I see trauma and we're working with it on a one-on-one basis or an energetic basis, to me, it's ultimately about coming back to your body's wisdom. And it's how we started this conversation, is like, okay, when you have trauma, something happened that was too much and too quick, too penetrative, not only physically, but energetically or emotionally or spiritually, and it was too fast. You weren't ready for it, and it was too deep. It went in too much. It went in too much, meaning like the word or the energy or the circumstance or the person you were feeling energetically that they had too much of you. Does that make sense? And you were not ready to condone that or accept that, all right? So what happens then is that if we just think about temperatures or black and white, dark and light, we could think about heat and ice, right? Your body's meant to be warm, right? And so when we have trauma or we have something that's shocking, right? If I turn around all of a sudden there's like someone with a sword like behind me or a gun, that's traumatizing. My whole body will freeze up and I'll be like, who knows what happened? I don't know, right? I'd likely just freeze up. And that's what happens in our bodies. And our wombs will literally freeze up and turn to ice energetically. So our job is to start to slowly warm up our bodies again. Start to slowly come back to the intuitive process and the wisdom. I call it the wisdom of the body because it's our ability to sort of soften the external layers of the physical and the energetic to slowly allow that flower to bloom again. Because if it's in ice, it's frozen, it's like a tight seed. And so as you warm up the soil and you warm up the oven, these are all metaphors, right? But like the bread starts to fluff up, the flower starts to open up, the sun in the spring and the summer. The warmth is what creates that ability to open up, open up, open up, open up. That's how I work with it. How do we bring your body back to softening and trusting that intuition? Trusting your ability to feel safe and held and even maybe nurtured and expressed, right? But because you're in a space, knowingly or unknowingly, in that ice or that frozen state, that could be very difficult, right? So the way that I see it first is, how can we, in a very subtle way, because one thing with trauma is that a lot of modalities, they're very intrusive. They're very like, let's get in there, let's rip it apart, let's surgically remove it, or let's like energetically. And it's kind of like sometimes with the feminine, most specifically, and again, this is coming from just my line of work with like understanding the feminine mysteries and understanding the work of the feminine, sometimes you just gotta sit in it. Like I was part of a grief workshop on one of the leaders of the feminine mysteries. And it was me and another woman, and we were actually in the studio yoni steaming. And we decided, well, we're part of this grief workshop. We're connecting with the feminine of the collective. Let's allow the steam in our bodies to show us. And we did in the workshop what is probably very uncomfortable, which is you're gonna take your hands on your womb and you're gonna sit there and you're gonna connect with the grief. And I didn't realize that we hold grief, but we all hold grief. I don't care who you are. As a woman, you hold grief because you hold the womb. So we tapped into that grief, and it was this infinite well of grief that we hold inside of us. So why do I say that? Because we felt safe. We knew we were in a place that nothing was going to hurt us. But we literally, our job in that moment, the facilitator, wasn't like, let's go in there, remove the grief. No, no, no. The work of the feminine is, let's sit in that grief and let it rip, cry, yell, shout, and just sit in it. And we did it for like half an hour. And it was so liberating. I merged with that grief to the point that I was like so fucking alleviated. I'm like, wow, this is what humanity feels. This is what I feel as a human being. Like, and I say this because if we have trauma in our womb, sometimes it's not about like forgiving that thing or person or experience and letting it go. Sometimes you just gotta go right back into it and just like maybe even reenact it, but reenact it in the physical body of like, how does it feel now? And 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 what would I do right now? And what would I do right now? And would I scream? Would I shout? Would I sing? Would I be in bliss? And actually at the end of that grieving, there was a tremendous amount of bliss. So much bliss that you're like, you almost go into this orgasmic state because you're like, I am so merged with the grief that the only thing that is left is bliss. And that's how I feel, and that I feel more comfortable working with that trauma of like, let's sit in it to the point where you are so merged with your own experiences that you have so fully accepted and acknowledged them that you have nothing left but to like, you are so much in your heart that you have nothing but forgiveness, gratitude, and acknowledgement for whatever it is that you experience, or your mother or grandmother or anybody that you've ever met. So my point is like, sometimes you just have to acknowledge it. And a lot of times we're like, well, that thing already happened, I'm kind of over it, whatever, I'm not. But then you go back to all the questions that we've talked about this workshop. How am I showing up with myself, with my partner, with my self-care? And so the feminine wants you to see her and hold her and just make space for her. And that is not pretty. That's never pretty, right? But you got to do it. The feminine does the dirty shit and work that sometimes. And again, like we all have feminine, masculine, right? So it's not about gender, but it's like our masculine side is like, let's put an order to this. Let's make it, you know, let's create a structure. And we need that. Of course we need that. But just focusing on the feminine for this moment of time, it's like, she's the one that's going to take you deeper into those experiences so that you can receive the medicine of them. Yeah. So the first thing is to just connect with the energy, acknowledge it, and start moving the energy, right? So like I said earlier, you can use yoni steaming as a way to connect with that energy, acknowledge it, and start moving it, because steam is very safe, and the medicine of plants is ultimately, I heard this thing one time which was so amazing. It was like, our cells in our bodies, and don't quote me scientifically because I'm sure scientifically it's not the right verbiage, but like there's some kind of connection, I don't think it's neural, but like there's some kind of electric connection in our cells that connects to every plant on this earth. I didn't know that. Like you take in basil, there's a receptor for basil in your body. I had no idea. But this is how we receive the medicine of these plants. So you sit in these steams and you bring in the rose and the chamomile and the jasmine and the nettles, and yeah, your body's receptors are going to open up and be like, oh my God, I recognize this. Let me receive the medicine, right? It's fascinating. So yeah, you have that. Obviously, you can work with it energetically, so you can start to move that space if you are new to the trauma work and sort of hesitant to even go into that space and feel into it, right? Like you could just start to move it energetically through energy work or through clearing. We're now hosting a womb breathwork ceremony here. It's really powerful, but literally just through womb, through breathwork, and through sound. You can just start to tap in and get curious if this is something that's like, I don't even know what's in there. That's a good place to start too. And so the next step would be, after you acknowledge it and you start to move the energy, because here's the thing, you gotta move the energy. You gotta acknowledge it first. Then once it's there, you gotta move it, right? You gotta sit in it, then you gotta start moving it. And then it's time to process and integrate that. So like, oh shit, now what? Like, how do we process and integrate that kind of stuff, right? So if you think about it energetically, if you have stagnation, now you're accepting that stagnation, acknowledging it, you're giving it eyes, and you're like, okay, let's start to move it in a very soft way, whether it's by steam, by energy, by breath work, or by all the different modalities. Maybe these ladies can share more. how do I process and integrate? Now you got to move that energy through your body, because these are memories in your cells, and as long as you don't move the energy in your cells, they're still there. You can't get rid of energy. You can move it, but you can't make it disappear. That's really important to understand when we talk about womb work and trauma work and all that stuff. So to me, I find journaling is really powerful, right? Free writing is very powerful. Speaking it, yeah, giving your stories a place to be spoken to is beyond powerful. Being honest with somebody about what your womb has encountered and experienced, or what you're carrying, that in itself can be extremely liberating. And to me, the next step is actually moving through it. And that's when you use movement, breath, releasing modalities, which I think these ladies I'll let them talk more about that, but modalities to actually move that energy through the body. So, and I wanted to bring this topic in because, one, it's not comfortable to talk about trauma. Nobody really wants to talk about it, but we all carry it. And I feel like one of my responsibilities is to bring that awareness, because if we're going to talk about our menstrual cycle and we're going to talk about our hormones, then we gotta really get into like what's in our womb, you know. Abdominal massage, like physically moving that energy in our that is very powerful. Like, you don't even know what you're moving until you physically start to move it with a practitioner. Like, our uterus, because of so many reasons, whether it's traumatic, physical, or whatever, or energetic, it actually starts to move. Like, I don't know if you guys know that, but our uterus is supposed to be aligned. And because of life experiences, sometimes it's collapsed to one side or the other, or like, and all these funky things. And then it affects the placement of our organs. And there goes the energy center, right? So like an abdominal massage that I keep pointing to her because Tracy's the massage therapist. It's extremely powerful. And again, it's one of those tools that you're like, well, maybe I'm not ready to sit in the grief, but maybe I just want to physically know, like, what does it feel like to move that energy around and see what happens, right? Okay, so then I'm going to hand over the floor. Maybe we'll start with Nea. So Nea is she's a mental health therapist, and you could give your...
So I'm a mental health therapist. I have shamanic background, and so my work is really to tap into the shadow aspects of ourselves, right? And what is that? The shadow aspect is the dark, deep, scary stuff that we want to ignore, that we don't want to give life to, that is living within all of us. And so for me, that work is the space of liberation for all of us. It is where we truly, genuinely find ourselves, and where we rebirth ourselves. So all these areas where we don't want to go into, where it seems too scary, where it's like, that's taboo, I don't want to go in there, that's painful, that's what I like to work with. I feel like those are the spaces that bring us back into our heart space, right? And okay. So these are the spaces that bring us into our heart space. For a long time, I worked in mental health facilities. I specialize in addictions and mental illness. And I realized that the way that I was trained and what I was taught was not working, right? So talking about the thing over and over and over again was not doing anything. And so through the process of my awakening, I started to understand that the only way to get deeper into this trauma, whatever it is that we're feeling or experiencing or holding on to, was to actually get in there and feel it, like you were talking about earlier, right? So when we talk about trauma is actually something that is stored in our cells. Trauma is anything that impacts the nervous system, and at that point it is so extreme that your nervous system cannot process it in that moment. And so therefore it becomes something that is traumatic, and we shut down. And that shutdown is stored in the cells. And so with that being said, just talking about it doesn't do anything. We have to, like she said, move it out of the body, and that's where a lot of my shamanic work comes in. That is directly related to our womb space, right? You said something earlier about how our relationship with our womb is our relationship with others in relationship. But I genuinely feel that our relationship with our womb and the darkness that's being held there is the relationship that we have with all of life. How you show up in life, right? How you show up for yourself, how you show up for others, how you show up for your partners. And so working with these shadow elements and these darker aspects of you, it's really all about feeling it. It's about sitting with the thing that is so uncomfortable and so painful. It makes me want to cry because I've been in those spaces. And nobody teaches you what that is, right? Yeah, and it feels really dark and really heavy and very scary. And when you finally tap into it, it's like, okay, it's not that bad, right? But what we all need is that sacred space to be held within that darkness and to know that it's okay to go there, right? It's okay to feel that thing. It's okay to process it. And like the skin of a snake, right? We just shed it off as we feel it. And so for me, sacred rage is a very big thing, right? Allowing yourself to feel that rage, sit in it, like you said. And that can be for months, it could be for weeks, it could be for a day, for whatever it is, right? You feel it and you move through it. And that could be yelling into your pillow, that can be punching your pillow, that could be yelling until you're on the floor crying, right? I've done some trauma work where I have been told to yell, and I sat there for 5 minutes and I could not do it, right? Because my throat is connected to my womb. And for me to allow myself to open up and go there was impossible. And I just sat there and I was like, my mind kept yelling at me, like, yell. And I could not physically do it. And so the womb holding all of this darkness that we are really reacting and living through, right? We're constantly living through these spaces of our trauma, of our patterns, of our behaviors. That's where we live through. And until you start to do this work and you start to peel back those layers like an onion, you don't realize that this is not really you, right? This is how I grew up. This is how I was conditioned. This is the trauma that makes me do these things and makes me show up this way. And that work can be really scary and it can be really painful, right? But sitting with it and giving it the space that it needs is the only way through it. So for me, really, the darkness is the only space where I come into the light, right? Like she said earlier, we are birthed in darkness. And so knowing that your own liberation comes from your own darkness. So what that looks like in regards to tapping into that womb space and working through that is, right, feeling that rage. It's movement, like you said earlier, right? It's acknowledging the thing. Allow yourself to acknowledge that pain and that trauma and that thing that really hurt you, right? Sometimes we don't want to acknowledge it and we say, I'm better than that trauma. Yeah, you are, and at the same time, it's what's made you and it's what brought you to where you are. So acknowledge it and give it the power and the respect that it needs. And when you allow yourself to open up to that, then you can actually work through it and you can get in there and you can step into a much deeper space within yourself. Yeah.
So with your line of work, right, because you've had this sort of contrast where you didn't work with the womb space and then you did, or you are, how are you finding that to shift within women or the women that you work with, like now that you introduce the work of the womb?
Yeah, there's a very big misunderstanding about the womb, right, with the women. That's why we're all here. And what I'm seeing is that so many of us within this field of mental health, right, so many of us think there's something wrong with me, right? Like 1 week I'm perfectly fine, the next week I'm totally off, the next week I love myself, then I hate myself, then I'm fat and I'm gross and all the things, right? And really what that is just as you tap into your womb, it's understanding the seasons within your own body and understanding in this week, right before you get your period, yeah, you're not going to feel great about yourself. And then when you get into your period and you're actually bleeding, you're connecting to your subconscious. And that subconscious is connected to all of our trauma and all of our pain and all of our wounds. And so, yeah, when we're bleeding, that's when we feel the most rageful, or what we call PMS, right? Or what we call as bitchy and mood swings. It's not. It's the subconscious asking you to tap deeper into that space, to connect to all the things you have not processed, that you have not allowed yourself to actually deal with, and to feel it. And so I teach that a lot to my clients, and they're all like, oh my God, you mean I'm not crazy? It's like, no, you're not. And there was something else I wanted to say about that. I lost my train of thought. So it's connecting to that. It's understanding so the physical manifestation of anything we're experiencing, right? The symptoms that come up, those are just physical manifestations of not connecting to the pain, not connecting to the wound, not connecting to those spaces that are asking to be heard. And the more that we suppress it and the more that we push it down, it comes up as physical symptoms. And that can look like physical symptoms that can of just the body. That can look like mental symptoms of mental illness, right? Of what appears to be borderline personality disorders, what appears to look like ADHD or bipolar. It's just all coming from the spaces that you are not actually tapping into your wounds. And so those wounds come out through symptoms that look like a lot of mental illness. And so knowing that, it just gives you so much more power, right? It gives you power and understanding that I can tap into this, I can tap into these darker places within myself, and I'm actually okay, right? So all of the answers are in the womb. All of the answers are in your darkness, and yeah, that's been my experience. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Just want to thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As a moment, what you said earlier, pain is necessary. Like, I understand what you mean by that, but I think people simplify that phrase a lot, or excuse toxic behaviors. Pain is necessary. So with everything you were saying, I thought pain has a purpose.
Yeah.
And recently, I hurt myself. I smashed my finger right outside here, and I walked across the street last time I came here, and kind of traumatized. Oh shoot, I haven't been back here in the street since. But it was just you smash something, hurts. But I sat there for a minute, I let it go through my body, and I almost passed out. But I realized I don't need the pain. That pain was in the moment to get my finger out of the door, and it brought a whole bunch of other emotional stuff that was going relevant to not being able to use my finger. But after that, my finger didn't hurt at all. It was bruised and ugly for months, but it didn't hurt to the touch, because I felt like I processed it in a moment.
Yeah.
And I realized that pain was to tell me to get my finger out the door, and then it brought a bunch of other emotional stuff up too. But it just has a purpose, and that I think embracing it helps us know the purpose. It tells us not to do that, or not to do with that person, or how to set our boundaries if we accept it as such.
Yeah, totally.
Actually, I have something to say about that. So I just heard recently that, or it wasn't recent, but I was listening to somebody, and they were basically comparing the animals in the wild, and then us, right? And so they were saying how animals in the wild don't hold trauma, right? But they have experienced way more traumatizing experiences than we do, right? Because they can literally lose their life or die because of starvation, right? So but the difference is that when they're traumatized, and they do exactly what you just said. Something happened to your finger, but you allowed yourself to process it and move through it, right? So animals, they'll chase each other for death, right? I'm gonna eat you, I'm gonna chase after you. And then whatever happens, whether they catch the food or not, or you were the one being chased, if you watch animals in the wild, after those experiences, what do? They shake it off. They go, and then they yawn, right? If you watch cats, they do stuff, they huge yawn, they wiggle out their tail, and then I'm good. What do? We turn ice, right? So that's huge, because it's that process is what we as a humanity got to do now. We got to shake it all off, Thanks for sharing that. Javer, do you want to add anything?
Sure.
Yeah.
So many different things came up when you were speaking and when we were going around the circle, just about my own trauma healing. And I went to sound healing school at Globe Institute in San Francisco, because the way that I healed the trauma was both through somatic things and the earth, and then in addition to that, sound therapy. So different songs would come through from spirit. So it was basically 2 years of me not listening to music and allowing the channel of my body to receive the messages that it needed to heal itself. So sound is one of the quickest ways that we can move that energy and tap into the frequency of whatever's going on in the body. So it could be through toning or through instrumentation or any earthly sounds. So basically we have the entire world available to us because we are the world. So when you tap into those energies and when you can go to those places within yourself that have been wounded or that are carrying that vibration of trauma or pain or freezing, what came up for me also was that that's what my body did in my trauma response, and what many bodies do, is to freeze for a very long time, and potentially years or centuries, or like through ancestral lineages also. And the freeze response for me was physically mirrored in the earth as well, which is what has always been my medicine, is the earth. So when I was feeling frozen, the entire city where I was living turned to ice. So I was walking 6 hours a day and moving the energy, but in a frozen environment. So it was quite ironic, but really beautiful that the earth mirrored my pain in that way. So it was just an experience of learning through just trial and error, because I didn't have money at the time to pay for healing. So it was learning through my own experience of what I could manifest or ask for from the earth, and what I could create, like you're saying, from my own body, to say, I'm not going to isolate anymore. I'm not going to sit here by myself anymore. I'm going to ask for help from people, or from the plants, or from the trees, or from that frozen structure over there, or anything really. And then what's coming up from within myself at that time? What can I do to help myself? Because I don't have any other help right now. So my own learning was that I have all the answers within myself, and that we all do. And so that's what I love to help people do, is to find their own songs, their own answers, and the frequencies and the processes, in addition to like daily earth practices that can help you recreate balance and beauty in your life. So. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions about? So if you're curious to know a little bit more about Jaybird, I did an IG Live with her on Instagram. She's a beautiful soul who's doing really good work with this kind of conversation, because of her own life experiences. So yeah, I mean, that kind of wraps up the conversation. If anyone has any questions, like about anything that we talked about, or maybe like you came in thinking this was going to be, I don't know, whatever you would like clarification on, or kind of last words, or.
Some questions.
Yeah.
Especially for you communities that have a lot of like specialization in this, what are some actions that you do to express the pain that your wound feels, and just to be that you mentioned screaming, and like when you were saying that, I was like almost hearing that feeling like wanting to scream and like wanting to do that stuff. What are some other things you guys recommend?
The first thing I would say is, I feel that we don't sit in our own body long enough, right? So like you said, you just heard that and your whole body would just wanted to yell, right? So being able to be in silence, even if it's for 5 minutes, and tapping into, what am I really feeling in this moment? And your body will always tell you, like in that moment, you wanted to yell. That's because that's what you need to do. So just asking yourself, what do I need right now in this now moment? And you will know. Maybe it's pounding your fist on the floor, maybe it's yelling, maybe it's crying, maybe it's being in a ball on the floor for hours. Whatever that is, your body will tell you what that is. Mm-hmm. And so you actually have to listen, right? So you just got that message to yell. So go home and start yelling. Like grab your pillow and yell as much as you can until you are on the floor exhausted and you cannot get up anymore. And you don't have to understand what's happening. You don't have to understand what this is. You don't have to understand why exactly you're yelling or what memory is connected to it. You just have to get it out. And the memories and everything else will eventually start to come. But as soon as you start to move it out, it'll come.
Pass the mic, only because Jaybird, you're so soft-spoken, but Jaybird has a lot of really amazing recommendations.
I'm really glad you asked that, because that was something else that came up that I forgot to say. And
I think it's so important because I think, anyway.
Yeah. No. So yeah, at that time, like sometimes the things that we experience are like incredibly violent. So it's things that it wasn't your choice, and that's the main problem, is that your body didn't have a choice in the matter, so you had to compromise in some way to keep yourself safe. So there's a lack of judgment that comes in. There's like an open space to allow yourself to feel how that was, and to know that that's maybe not what you necessarily would have wanted to do, but that you had to either survive or to remain alive in that situation. So dropping all judgment about what's going on or what your body had to do in the past in order to survive, and then moving on from there to, like Celeste was saying, to creating a scenario where you're able to do all of those things and like work it out in whatever way you're saying. If you need to stay in that place of crying for hours, or if, like for me personally, it was taking a knife and going to the beach and stabbing the sand, because the penetration wound was so deep that I wanted to kill, because it was so strong, that it was so harmful to me, that it felt like I needed to kill something, but I didn't want to create more harm for others, so I chose to stab the sand and move the energy in that way. So it was a release that had to happen for a number of weeks before I could finally feel at peace with that energy moving from my body. So like any number of, there's an infinite potential for what tools or for what people or for what places could be right for you.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Jaybird. I feel like that's so powerful, because like when you said that, I was like, oh my God, that's genius, right? Because I've heard women say that same thing, like, I have so much rage, I have so much resentment. It's like, where do I put it, right? And sometimes you need a knife, but you're not, you're not gonna do that old thing, right? It's like, well, that's the safest thing you can do. That is genius, because nature is your best friend, right? I have women who have said, I've gone in the ocean water and yelled my lungs out. No one's gonna ever hear you. You're just yelling in the water, and it's the most liberating experience ever. Go out and yell in the water, right? Because maybe you can't go home. Maybe the people you live with would never allow for that, right? So you're like, oh, fuck, I can't do that. Like, no, you can always do something. You just gotta find, you gotta be creative, right? And like, there's a lot of beautiful ways to move that, but the most important thing is to move it, right? So if you feel that inside, it's like, it's you're ready for that, you know?
I want to say something to that, and what you just shared. It reminds me that is a shamanic form of release, giving it back to the earth, right? Because the earth, when we're talking about the womb, the earth is a huge womb, and she's waiting for us to release. Because as we release to her, she's transmuting that for us, right? So it's a matter of us releasing, like you were doing, right, or into the ocean, and giving it back to her. She'll transmute it, and the darkness that she transmutes, she brings forth in life. So, yeah, it's actually a beautiful practice.
I'd like to add to that, if I may, it's, before we do that on someone else, my son, one of the things that was most therapeutic for him was to scream at me at the top of his lungs and blame every miserable part of his life on me and call me every horrible name in the book. But I knew in that moment that he was releasing. And so while the people around were like, stop, that's your mom, I said, let him go, he's healing. I knew I had that wherewithal. In that moment, I had a moment of clarity as a mom, and I knew. So before it happens and you unleash it on somebody else who may not be prepared to receive it, go to the ocean. Go to your pillow. But the point is that it was, the whole neighborhood heard him, but it was very liberating and freeing for him. He needed to do that. So let's scream more. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, especially in cultures where you're not told to talk. It's not just women. Cultures in particular, you don't talk about your problems, you don't have emotions. You certainly don't yell at your mom, call her a bitch, a cunt, or whatever, they call it light. But that's what he did, and I let him. And it was hard, but I knew. Yeah, so it was liberation.
I have a question, and this is kind of interesting because I was just thinking of it, and then you spoke about your son too, and I was just thinking like, when women are tending to be able to have these circles and gatherings and talk about things and start to heal in that way, which is also healing and being together. But what about men? Like, my husband like really could use some kind of
healing, but I don't know what. And you know, I think just culturally as well, is that they're not really like, oh, I don't want to go do that like hippie thing or whatever, but like, what are there resources out there? Have you had anything, or like, do you ladies know of anything that men could kind of like do or like get together, you know, like to be able to have similar healing experiences where like their wives or their girlfriends or girls don't have to be involved and they don't have to like show that soft side to them, but it's like something that they need, you know.
Well, I'll say, and I know a lot of us have that, so I'll let everyone speak, but like, at least from my experience, first and foremost, like, it's really important, just like this is medicine for us, to sit in a circle and speak and talk and be like, who has a question, right? Like, men need to do this too. And just everybody, men, women, everyone in between, because we all have these energies and we all have to heal. So like, if you are in partnership or not in partnership and you're doing this work, at some point, your reflection will have to do it too. It's just part of it. So there are a lot of circles all around the world happening now with men that are waking up and realizing this, and they're doing this. They're having the rage circles. Men more specifically because they're so physical, they can hold so much more and they're that much stronger. So like, they have even more to move through physically. So yeah, it's really important that they do that. I'm actually looking to hopefully be able to create that with a group of men here, but we don't have that yet here. We were just talking about that earlier today. Somebody was like, are men allowed to go into tutu? I'm like, yeah, of course they're allowed. I mean, I work with the feminine energy, but everyone's allowed. You know, men have feminine energy too. So the idea is to find a way to bring those men in here. But if any of you ladies know of men's circles on Oahu, please share. Yeah.
Saturday Night Live had a really great idea, and there were man parks.
Man parks.
It's like when your guy comes home and says, needs to download on you, you have a place to send them.
Yeah.
And it's the man park. And it's
That's true.
contained, and the guy, no, it was a comedy skit.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
But no, it made sense.
There's a group on there, it's called, well, it's actually international, but it's called the Mankind Project.
Yes. They have actually gatherings in Oahu, right?
Yeah.
Mankind Project, yes.
Cool. You can do them online, I think, also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Cool. And just find out, I think this thing turned off. Find out, do that research, right? And then it's just like women's groups, you're gonna sort of align with one and not the other. You just gotta feel out the frequency and, you know, but I think it's just really important to know that we all have, this is not just women's work, it's everyone's work. And, you know, you're just gonna find the group that feels good.
I'm gonna ask a similar question. Were there any like energetic or like physical equivalents of a yoni steam for masculine?
Yeah, so men apparently are also able to, I guess it's called prostate steaming. I'm not educated on it, so I don't talk about that because I don't know it. But I don't know if anyone else has heard here, but there is such thing as men steaming for their prostates, and apparently it's very beneficial too. Like, it's very supportive of them. Yeah, but that's all I can say. I don't know anything else. I don't know if anyone else knows about it. Yeah, but I know it's a thing for men. Yeah. And I think it's really important too, I just want to see if maybe I have more batteries. Just touching on that topic of fertility, right? Because fertility, again, it's not just a woman thing. So like, we all have fertility. So and there is a global crisis, if you didn't know, on fertility. And there's a lot of reasons for that we're not going to talk about today. But, and it's also the men's responsibility too. It's not just like, we're not in the 50s where it's all about the woman and her, you know, that's just very old school. It's like fertility comes from two in that process. And so, yes, they can definitely benefit from just even looking into it energetically and using steam as a form of medicine. Yeah. Any other questions?
I wanted to say something that I heard a few weeks ago, and it was this woman talking about PMSing and kind of what she says it stands in her world, it stands for please make space.
Yeah, I have that in the journal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please make space for what needs to come.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, And that's all it is. Your cycle, your womb and your cycle is your teacher. So when it yells, it's because you need to yell. Or when it's like painful, it's because there's something that's causing pain in your body that you gotta make space for.
It's not that there's not a lot of questions. For me, it's just there's a lot of information sometimes that's just in my head, and I love that you brought this, and thank you so much. And I feel like having this awareness is so important for personal growth and to keep understanding our health and our bodies and the next generations. And I feel as an older woman that it's so important that younger women are learning about their bodies earlier in life. And I also feel like I don't wanna go down the dark path, but like our education system's so broken and that it's all this external information that the system feels like they need to fill these empty vessels up with. And where is that education, that loving, open-hearted education about self-care and understanding oneself and keeping that balance. I mean, that's an idealistic look at education, but we're so lopsided.
But someone has to be idealistic, right? To sort of, and that's what I feel like. I really feel that right now, like the world is really being rebirthed right now. That's the way that I see it energetically. I can sort of connect to the whole global scale thing and what we've been experiencing as a humanity for 2 years. That was a tremendous miracle, believe it or not. A miracle of the feminine to stop people in their paths, to stop these global structures from becoming bigger and bigger and bigger because they were already almost unstoppable. So enough people have woken up to say, hold on a second, like who's gonna create these new structures, right? And Tiana speaks from a place because she's been working in some of the institutions, right? Like so many of us have been working in these institutions that were initially created to support people, but then when we're in deep enough, we realize, hold on a second, like this is not doing any good, right? I come from that background too. I was trained to go into the government. I was doing intel work and in DC, and I was like, none of this is working. Or this is not actually intelligence work. This is like criminalization, And so like, I genuinely believe that it's, everyone has masculine and feminine energy, but I think it's the feminine that's gonna rebirth all of these institutions. And we're gonna have to create, and we are creating, I think, the new foundations, for humanity. And so like, where's the balance? The idealistic ones are gonna have to come in and be like, we're creating this new stuff, And it depends on our fertility or our ability to anchor into our womb, into our truth, and be like, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm gonna birth. So I love this conversation around the womb space because I feel like I said earlier, right? Like this conversation can really go out like very far, very quick, but if you think about it, like that's the feminine. She wraps herself around every single particle of this human experience. But sometimes we don't slow down enough to see that. And we're just like, oh, I'm bleeding, I'm not pregnant, I'm not, boom, that's enough of the feminine for me kind of thing. It's like, oh, I actually feel pain right now in my womb just saying that, So just kind of like opening maybe ourselves energetically to encompass more of the feminine in our lives and like being open to that. Tracy, do you want to say anything in regards to oh, sorry.
Well, other questions, I guess, this is like really prominent in my life because I totally feel like coming in, even like when I first met you, I was like, I knew it was coming into my life.
Yeah.
I really align with like, even your background saying you're very connected to the cosmos, and I'm extremely much like that, and I have been ever since I was little.
Yeah.
And so grounding has always been, even thinking about it, it's always a struggle.
Yeah.
And how is it like that you could do all this womb work and stay grounded while also staying connected? And because I do energy work and I work with doing women for life games like that. How do you use both of them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, okay, so before that, I know we're going past our time limit. So if some of you ladies have to go, I totally understand. So have a whole webinar actually that talks about how we need the womb to anchor in spirit. And I think that all came through because we're living in such a space and time where like spirituality is such a thing that it's very easy to not anchor in, right? Because the first thing you're taught in energy healing and work is like, get out of the body, right? Move, expand, leave. And what I find is that in order to actually hold more powerful energy, you have to anchor it. Your body is, think about electricity, the way that it works. If you don't ground electrical rods into the earth, you don't have electricity, right? So our bodies are that electrical unit. If you're not grounding it, you're gonna hit the roof at some point and be like, that's it, this is my roof, I can't go anymore. But then the only way to do that is you have to ground the energy back into your body to then expand even further. Does that make sense? And then if you're asking for like, are you asking for like how to do it specifically, or? I don't know, I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, you did.
Okay, yeah, so think about your body as an electrical rod. That's actually what we are. We are literally antennas. And so our job in this lifetime is to wake up your antenna and to be that channel. And our antenna is our soul. So like the more we can anchor into our soul but stay rooted and grounded, the more powerful you are. As soon as you start coming out of that grounded experience, then you can fly around for a little bit, but you're only gonna go so far, you know? And I only say that because I was taught that in the hard ways. Like I didn't know that in the beginning, you know? I just want to close up with Tracy, if you have any, like, because I know now that you're doing abdominal massage and you brought that awareness into the physicality, like really grounded space of like, let's move the energy around the womb and the abdominal area, how you have seen that work sort of affect women or just anything that comes up for you.
Okay. Well, I'll introduce
If you want
myself.
to.
Yeah, I'll yes, and I'll see what
Okay.
kind of what's been. There's so much coming up.
I know.
But first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tracy Adams. I'm a licensed massage therapist. More importantly, an intuitive body worker. Never mind the paperwork. I got that. But I've been doing this I've been a body worker since '98. Didn't really have an awakening until maybe 4 years ago, and didn't really look at body work as energetic for all of that time. And energetic work can take a long time or it can be really quick. It just depends on where you are, what's happening. I had a client the other day who had a massage. She came in for the second time and there's your raffle winner, by the way.
Oh, yay.
And she said, I don't know, I just feel like I need to come back because it's like you just activated something and I just felt so good. And what it was the energy was moved. And that's what she said. She was like, it's just like, and that's what she said. She was just like energy was just moved or something, just moved something around. We didn't undo a lifetime of muscle tension. We didn't heal any past trauma, into any depth. But something was shifted to make space for something else. So
practical.
It's so practical. I'm super practical. Virgo in 5 places in my chart in the Western side, so sorry about it. But not sorry. I would like to ask, who here is happy and excited about being a woman right now?
Totally.
Okay. Even if not, there's no right or wrong. Get excited because you're in the right place at the right time. When Celeste and Nia and Jay Bird, nice to meet you this year, when we talk about holding space and providing a place of support, of love, of being able to speak freely without judgment and being met on the opposite end with either listening, a very mindful response, or just holding space, whatever. That's what you're going to get here, and that for me has been one of the most empowering things in my transformation. But coming back to massage, as a body worker, connecting into energy in the womb. I've been doing massage all this time, but never massaged the abdomen, right?
Which is bizarre.
Bizarre, but that's the Western mindset. It's like, get to the muscles and, just get that work done. Get the work done. People come in and they're like,
I waited until I really needed you. And I'm like, really? So I gotta work really freaking hard? Because you know, like, come in and maintain your body, but whatever. The point is, it takes time to break those things down. So let me get to the point. If you want to feel empowered, and that's what we're talking about, empowered as women at this time. We're all excited about being women, sometimes we're not, whatever. But empowerment, that's what I'm about. Doing things, living a life that is empowered. So whatever I do in my life, who I hang out with, what I read, what I watch, unless it's just to dumb down and zone out for a little while, where I go is intentional, but it's gotta be empowering to me in some way. Empowered in love, empowered in peace, empowered in calm, empowered in, acceptance, whatever it is. I was very religious for a long time. It was very disempowering, very patriarchal, very male dominant, and very good for this, but not exclusive. I'm inclusive. I believe every human on this earth, regardless of your story, where you're going, regardless of how shitty other people might perceive you or how fantastic you are, deserves the opportunity to have tools, to be loved, supported. And like you said, I didn't know, nobody told me. But you guys don't have that excuse anymore. We don't have that excuse because we know. We're telling you. I'm listening. Celeste has been a wealth of healing information and resource for me. So at 51, I am the most confident, the most sexual and sensual confidently and unapologetically. And it's because I'm doing the fucking work, okay? I didn't wake up like this, right? I spent a long time of my life looking from here up, right? And weight was always an issue for me. That would define me, whatever, blah. So finally I was like, I really want to be happy and I really want to live this life for me because all these people passing judgment on me aren't paying my rent, they're not getting me off, they're not taking me to and from work, they're not helping me out when shit goes wrong, they're not raising my kids, so why do I put so much into what their opinion is of me? What matters is my opinion of myself. So, meet Celeste, here I am 51, I meant I think when I was 50, I don't know, but I'm to a place now in this confidence that I need a little bit of now guidance in what to do with all of this empowerment. So, right? So sexuality, sensuality, having that empowerment is good, but for me it needs some temperance, right? So what do I do with that? Womb. I understand my womb. I did not like the word womb. I know what the hell that is. Now I love it. So we have joined together very organically to offer abdominal massage and yoni steaming every Monday, November and December, except for one Monday. And we'll see how it goes after that. If we want to continue, we'll just kind of reassess whatever. So after all these years of not doing massage, I've fallen in love with abdominal massage based on the Mayan traditions. I'm not licensed or trained in the Mayan tradition, so it's based on that. I'm using my intuition plus what I know to apply this modality. So you'll come in, you'll meet with us. I think we'll do the consultation first to prepare the herbs for your yoni steam. Then you'll have a 20-minute, not a 20-minute abdominal massage, and then you'll transition into the yoni steam. So you might be familiar with all of this, you may not, but what my thing is as far as empowering women and people is to find modalities and resources and people and places and things that feel good and are enjoyable to maintain our health. So self-care for me is healthcare. So I believe, we were talking about this, I believe in Western medicine. I believe in going, if I have my arm cut off, I'm not gonna come to Celeste to fix it. I believe you probably could, but I'm gonna go to a doctor. But I believe that if I'm doing my part, if I'm in touch with my body, tuning in, loving my body, accepting it where it is, and by body I don't just mean weight for me, I mean my period, I don't have a period anymore, but I wish I had known you when I did, you know what I mean? But at least now I get to celebrate with you guys and then embrace this part of my life. But it's just tapping in for listening that our body is going to guide us, right? And so having these natural modalities and these resources that feel good, that empower, well, they don't always feel good. There can be some discomfort and we know that. So I want to just dispel that myth that like everything's got to feel good, right? We want everything to feel good. Your massage is supposed to feel good. The yoni steam is supposed to feel good. Well, it does, but sometimes the work is hard, right? And that's why we don't want to do it, but that's where the sweet spot comes after. So I'm very, very much a proponent of introducing modalities that are effective, grounding, natural, and enjoyable, and that we can do to sustain a healthy lifestyle and feel fucking brilliant as a woman, unapologetically, and not at the expense of men, And not saying, and I'm not talking about being a diva, that's not to me, I'm not talking about that, maybe there's a time for that. I'm talking about owning who we are as matron, maiden, empress, crone, whatever stage of life that we're in. And these natural modalities, whatever it is that we do, collectively or individually, get us there. So every Monday, December, November, show up, get your yoni and ab massage with us and start, or just continue your self-love journey naturally, organically, in a way that feels good. That's all.
Hey, my ladies, I think that's it. We went over, but it's fine. Thank you for being here. I love you all. I honor you for just showing up to this conversation and just being here. Yeah, totally. So thank you.
Thank you.
There's a ton of resources everywhere. I'm literally calling this place now like the womb portal. There's, you don't know about podcasts, Grounding Ascension via the Feminine. There's a ton of podcast episodes, and courses online, and just resources, women, and workshops, and just everything. So like, the reason I say that is because I don't want you to walk out and be like, now what? It's like, allow your intuition to guide you. See what feels good for you, you know? Connect with the women that are here. This is so beautiful to see so many beautiful faces here. I'm like, I thought I was gonna put together the workshop and be like, yeah, can you just sit there? Because I don't know if anyone's gonna show up, you know? So it's just nice to see that there's more women that are like, yeah, let's see what this is about. That's beautiful. That means a lot to me, so thank you.
There's also 13 of us and 13 planes on the wall.
Oh my God.
I like numbers.
Wow. And that was intentional. Well, that wasn't intentional. We actually measured it out and we came to the number 13, and that was like, this is the